This is a special edition because we are getting guests from a conference being organized in New Delhi, the Global Conference on New Sinology by a New Delhi-based think tank, Orca, in association with StratNews Global as media partners. And this conversation is part of that series. And with me is a special guest from Singapore, Dr. Lance Gore, a China specialist who has taught in the US on China, Chinese politics, Chinese party system, and also, of course, the foreign policy issues that China has. So welcome to this program, Dr. Lance.
Thank you for having me.
So let me begin with what you had in terms of the presentation that you did at this conference about the foreign policy drivers of China, how the party now dominates foreign policy issues or foreign policy determination as far as China is concerned. What has changed under Xi Jinping, if you can tell us briefly, in comparison to, say, his two predecessors?
Xi Jinping, we all know that Xi Jinping centralized power by creating a few leading groups, first four, then expanded in addition to previous leading groups. He's the head of those leading groups. And all his colleagues in the Politburo Standing Committee are, secondary or member of those leading groups, but he's always the head of those leading groups. By that, he's above his colleagues. So in that sense, he centralized the power. That's one thing. The other thing is he tried to integrate the party and the state. We know that the communist regime usually refer to party state. These two are always in a sort of not very comfortable situations. So Xi Jinping tried to integrate these two rather than, Deng Xiaoping's time, separate this party and from the government so they each do their business better. But Xi Jinping worried about the party losing power, so he has to integrate the party into the daily action of the state, so that party is not going to be marginalized. So that's his innovation, I may say.
Okay. But has this model being applied also to defense policy, you think, or is just foreign policy?
Oh, in defense, I think every area of Chinese government, same thing. Defense has always been under the party. We know that the Central Military Commission, that's a party organ.
Right.
Okay. It has wear the hat of state military, central state military commission, but that's just a name. But essence is still party organ.
Right.
So military is always under party. That's the Maoist principle of the party commanded again.
That's true. In fact, as they say that the PLA is the army of the party rather than the state.
Right.
So that's how.
Right. That's a part of
it. Yes. In terms of foreign policy, going back to how he has integrated party and state organs as far as foreign policy is concerned, does Xi Jinping's foreign policy reflect the thinking in the party, or it is only about he himself determining the foreign policy and then sort of putting it down or percolating it down to the party cadre?
Well, I would say that the Chinese foreign policy since Deng Xiaoping's time, on the whole, is quite consistent, continuous. I mean, not stay the same, but evolving, on the basis of previous policies. So the major difference between Xi Jinping's foreign policy and Deng Xiaoping's, Deng Xiaoping's basic line is to lie low, abiding time. Don't, put yourself up there, become a target of everybody else. When Xi Jinping came to power, China has been, experiencing 30 more years of continuous growth. So has become very powerful, It's second largest economy. So Xi Jinping basically move away, move out, you may say, out of Deng Xiaoping's Laido policy.
Right.
They want to, do some creativity.
Assert himself?
Yeah, assert China. I think, China, such a big country, has to have an impact on the world. You cannot just stay, little brother under the United States.
Right.
So that's for China's big power ambitions. It has to do something.
That's Xi Jinping's philosophy.
Yeah,
No.
yeah. And also that's based upon the growing Chinese power.
Right.
Yeah.
But the two predecessors for Xi Jinping, Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin, who followed Deng Xiaoping, actually followed Deng Xiaoping's policy and yet achieved the growth that you spoke about, 30 years of uninterrupted growth. So what is it that Xi Jinping feels that he should assert himself more while that policy was still very effective of, say, Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin?
Well, in his eye, by the end of Hu Jintao's regime, administration, there seemed to be the country is falling apart.
Oh, I see. He thought that, right?
Yeah, all the local government, they do their own thing. They don't listen to the central government. So there was a saying, the central policy do not get out of the gate of Zhongnanhai.
I see. This during Hu Jintao's time.
Yeah, of course, yeah. And within the Zhongnanhai, which is the compound housing central government and the party center,
Right.
within the Zhongnanhai compound, there are 9 members of Politburo Standing Committee, they each in charge of certain area
Sure.
of policy. And they do not have enough coordination. Basically, each of them, in their own domain, they are the king, they are the emperor.
Correct.
So there's a very little coordination. And also, based upon this decentralized power or rise of local sort of a lord, also rise of corruption,
That's right.
So corruption is a major concern.
Mhm.
And the coordination of policy is another major concern. That's why Xi Jinping, made a difference.
Right. So when we look back at 10 years of Xi Jinping and the current status, let's look at the broader picture about his foreign policy, where he has decided to take on the number one power in the world, that is the United States, and also not very friendly with his neighbors, either Japan or India, or even the smaller neighbors in Southeast Asia. He is constantly looking to pick fights. What drives this kind of a policy of Xi Jinping?
I remember when one of his first speech, he said something which at the time I didn't quite understand. He said nobody should expect that we should swallow the pill of undermining China's interest. So that statement is quite vague. Of course, in his mind, there's something concrete there.
Right.
So you over time you see, first announcing the identification zone on the East China Sea.
Right.
Then you build the island in South China Sea, and asserting, in a competition with India on the borders. That border has never been clearly, demarcated. But he said that's a national interest. We have to stay firm on those interests. So on those issues, his policy gives the impression it become assertive and become sort of aggressive.
Right.
Yeah.
So, speaking about India-China relations, you just referred to the border. That is the biggest wrinkle, if I may call that. It's not an exact word that describes it. Right now, that is what is driving the tension between, or the deterioration of the relationship between India and China. Where do you think Xi Jinping situates the border issue in his mind as far as India is concerned?
I think he would like to make the border issue a technical issue.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's just we haven't decided which border. He tried to, not to make it a political issue.
Right.
But on the Indian side, obviously that's quite different. If you do not solve that problem, then our relationship is not going to be normal.
Right.
So, in a sense, has been consistent. South China Sea issue is also a technical issue. Right. Okay, we claim that a long time ago, before the Communist Party came to power, we already claimed that. And we could claim that using the warship of the United States given to KMT, right. To circle around there and mark all those islands. That's our territory.
Right. Right.
So he said, once we claim that, we cannot back down.
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, it's the same telling Philippines. Our dispute is not our whole relationship. Right. It's just a tiny part. Mm-hmm. We should get along in all these other areas, as usual. Yeah. But this is just, treated as a technical issue. We'll work out somehow.
But in India, like you said, it's not seen like that.
Right.
Clearly, it's a political issue. It's a strategic issue. So, do you think Xi Jinping miscalculated India's response to the recent border standoff?
That part, I think, I don't think it's miscalculated. He knows India is going to react that way, but I think he figured that there is a way to persuade India that treat it as a, technical.
Just one of the issues of the...
Yeah, one of the issues, because these are two major, developing countries,
right.
largest and second largest population,
right?
They have a lot of other issues, more important issues.
Right.
So, on the basis of that, he think maybe he can persuade India to adopt the same role, because those disputed areas, mountains are all rocks. It's not very value there.
Right. So one question on again, how the populations in India and China see this border issue. In China, do you think there's any resonance about the border issue with India at all? Is that a core issue of concern for the Chinese population?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. For the Chinese population, the main concerns in Taiwan, South China Sea, East China Sea, I think they have, relatively, comparatively speaking, less, comprehension of the border issue along that. But, however, they take comfort in the 1962 war.
Yes.
China won, and China won very decisively, in that sort of put their psyche in a sort of a comfort zone. So it didn't arouse a lot of nationalist, emotions there.
Right. It is the other way around in India because of the 1962 war,
right,
and the political question that comes with it, or the the national psyche that comes with it.
Right.
The border issue does become important for India, and as India has made it clear, unless that is settled, other parts of the relationship cannot be normal.
Right.
Do you think there is any way out for this impasse between the two countries?
Oh, that's very difficult. Even if both sides hold on to their position, it's very difficult. I think in terms of territory, he's tough on territory. You see the territory in between Russia and China, or the island.
Right. Yes.
China's new map, released new map.
Is that?
Claim the whole island.
Correct.
Whereas in Xiang Zemin's time, half and half. Now they claim the whole.
Correct.
So that means, because according to treaties, the borderline should be in the middle of the river.
Sure.
According to that, that's of course is China. So it stands firm on that. Firmer than Jiang Zemin.
Yes, right. So he'll do the same thing here with India, you think?
I think he is not going to budge on that.
So same thing can happen from the Indian side, that it may not want to budge.
Right.
I mean, that's the indication that we get here.
Right.
So we don't see any solution in the immediate future.
If India say, Indians in the BRICS, right? And
in
G20, yeah.
In SCO.
Right. And also if India join the Security Council,
Right.
They have to work on a lot of major issues that has nothing to do
Right.
with the border issue. So would you, refuse to work? Or, you have to sort of, deal with those issues. And once you do that, that means you carry on, business without solving the border issue.
So there has to be some give and take on the
Right.
border issue.
Right.
One final question. One of the things that rattles or bugs China, if I can use that word, is the resonance and the traction that the four countries in the quadrilateral grouping or the Quad is they are getting. America, the United States, Australia, Japan, and India.
Right.
Do you think China or Xi Jinping sees that as a emerging threat or a imminent threat to his power?
This potentially, yes, depends on how this organization evolve, into what kind of extent in terms of, cooperation in the defense side. This, we were called, was brought up a long time ago.
Right.
At the time, Chinese geopolitical situation is very favorable. And when China, express its dissatisfaction, many, including India, Australia backed off.
Yes.
So this time it came together because the U.S.-China competition led to significant deterioration of China's political, geopolitical situation.
Sure.
So, if you say China is happy with that, no. But China couldn't do anything about it. So they has to deal with it. And hope for the best.
Okay. They will keep taking steps to deal with it, I suppose,
Yes.
going forward.
Yes.
But do you think they have any desire, or is there any way forward for improvement in the relationship between the United States and China?
I think, maybe it's just my personal view. U.S. and China relationship has been very rocky. If you compare U.S.-China today, 2023,
Right.
to 2013, I mean, China, still the same China. But U.S. bilateral relations, is totally different.
Right.
So what made the difference? I think it's not really, national interest changed so much, or power relations changed so much. I think it's mostly, thinking, attitude changed. To say that, the implication is that they haven't worked out new equilibrium yet, because they still have the same kind of national interest. They have to deal with each other on those issues, right? But now you have a much adversary relationship which disrupt those dealings.
Right.
So my thinking is that sooner or later they are going to settle down on some more constructive sort of dealing. Recently, you see a lot of overtures, U.S.-China, high-level discussions, interviews, talks, and a stream of high-level officials from U.S. visiting China. I mean, the U.S. has been, becoming aware that this is a big country. We cannot brush it away. we have to deal with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's the reality. You've captured it very well. Dr. Lance Gore, thank you very much for your time and your insights. Very useful for the Indian viewers and our viewers on the YouTube. We will keep coming back to you on sort of drawing on your expertise whenever time arises. But thank you again for your insights and your time.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Viewers, that was Dr. Lance Gore giving us his insights on where China is, where the India-China relation is. And therefore, do keep watching StratNews Global. You know where to reach us. Our social media handles are visible on the screen. Do keep sending feedback. It's valuable to us. And we will continue to bring you such interesting conversations. For the time being, it's goodbye.
In 2017, that is the 19th Party Congress,
Right.
I had gone to China just days after. And I met, obviously I can't name them, but some Communist Party cadres, very well informed.
Right.
Who told me, who said that, Xi Jinping has overreached himself. And we cannot, according to them, China cannot take on the US. And we are getting isolated.
Right.
Look at what friends we have, this person said. North Korea and Pakistan. So now you can have Russia.
Russia do it, yes.
But certainly that is what has happened.
Hello and welcome to StratNews Global. You are on The Gist, our daily evening program. I'm Nitin Gokhale. And with me on The Gist this evening is Jayadeva Ranade, familiar face on StratNews Global, China specialist, someone who watches developments in China, related to China very closely. And he's someone we are going to ask this question about what's going on in China internally and what is Xi Jinping's game plan with his ministers disappearing out of public view and of course so much of uncertainty in the polity as well as in the Chinese economy. So welcome to this program, Mr. Ranade.
Thank you.
And again, the inevitable question, what's happening in China? Is any clarity possible at all?
Well, I think clarity is difficult in such an opaque society and a system of government. But certainly it's very, very unusual what we are seeing. The rate at which changes are taking place in China, the way the ministers are going. And I would sort of say that we need to really look at things a bit deeper than just look at the number of ministers or others who have disappeared. The main issue is, what does it mean?
Sure.
What does it signal?
Right. Correct.
Chinese politics.
Yes. So, that will certainly be the main theme of this discussion. But a prominent minister, also, someone who has been in the public view as a defense minister, Li Shangfu, is not seen in the public for the last couple of months or maybe from early August. And before that, of course, we know that the foreign minister, Qin Gang, has just disappeared without a trace. And then there are these other reports about Purges in the rocket force and various other organizations. So when you connect all these dots, you think, is it because these ministers were collectively posing a challenge to Xi Jinping, or that he wants to show that he is cracking down on corruption and incompetence? What is it?
From the information that is available and from what I can see, I don't see these two as having disappeared because they are posing a challenge to Xi Jinping.
Sure. Okay.
And I'll explain why. But the rocket force could be because of the purging.
Right.
The rocket force is a favored force. They have always had a lot of money. They've always been very secretive. And with the build-up of the missile inventory by China, obviously they have even more funding. So that could be a possibility. I read a report that the PNA's Discipline Inspection Commission, which is their anti-corruption outfit, has started investigations for the period 2015 to 2018, which is when Li Shangfu was deputy commander of the rocket force. So maybe he is involved because they talked about some errors or misappropriations in the bidding process. But having said that, why I keep Li Shangfu and Qin Gang separate is that both were appointed by Xi Jinping.
Exactly.
Not only that, since you're talking about Nishang, and his father and Xi Jinping's father served together. And Xi Jinping has, in a way, you can say, moved him up. In fact, it was Xi Jinping's father who brought Li Shangfu into the mainstream from being just technical
Engineer, soldier, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Brought him into the mainstream. And then, of course, he's been promoted. He was brought into the 19th Central Committee of the Chinese Communist Party by Xi Jinping. And, of course, now, main defense minister and state councillor. So, to my mind, he's a Xi Jinping man, if I could call him that, a Xi Jinping loyalist. And I doubt very much if a person with his background would plot against Xi Jinping because his future is tied to him.
Right.
Similarly, if we look at Chin Kang, it is the same thing. In fact, Chin Kang is not a diplomat, per
Right.
se.
Correct.
He came from the intelligence background and he was brought into the foreign ministry after many years. And then it was Xi Jinping who brought him into the Central Committee at the last Congress in October last year. And straight away entered as a full member. Then he sent him, earlier he had sent him as foreign minister.
Ambassador to US, yes.
Ignoring the claims of other senior-type. Then before he finished his term, he brought him back,
Right.
appointed him as full CC member, as a foreign minister and a state councillor. Wang Yi, etc. were waiting 5 years before they got that. So these guys are Xi Jinping.
Blue-eyed boys.
Blue-eyed boy. So which raises the question, if they have disappeared or whatever, why? Is it that someone is pushing back against Xi Jinping? Is there a factional fight?
Right.
Which is what I tend to subscribe to, that there are groups which are unhappy with Xi Jinping, and there are enough of them.
Right.
We can talk about that.
Yes.
But they are pushing back because both these are favorites.
Right.
And
so he got rid of them to damage control.
either that or both of them are, there is an effort to push them out, and the decision has not yet been made, which is why we don't hear it.
Right. No, but let me take you back to your own article which you wrote for us on StratNews Global just days before the G20 summit, and where you were, I think in my view, the first one to point out that Xi Jinping is not coming to G20 not because he wants to snub India, but because he has his own problems back home which are just increasing by the day. And it now seems that it is all coming true. So obviously you have better analysis and better insight into...
And neither can one identify one particular cause.
Okay.
So let me just run through.
Give me this, yes.
One is the deteriorating economic situation.
Right.
No hope in sight for it to improve at the moment, at least. That is one.
Right.
So a lot of people are unemployed. Joblessness is very high in the rural area as well as in the urban sector. Second, private entrepreneurs, the businessmen, they've been hit very badly. So businesses are closed down. And according to estimates by Chinese, thousands of businesses have closed down per year.
Right.
So you can imagine the extent of unemployment and the unhappiness among the private entrepreneurs. The figures given out by the National Statistics Bureau, which is an official arm of the government, talks about a slight improvement in the economic sector of these state-owned enterprises,
I see.
not the private entrepreneurs. So, that imbalance remains. Third, the income differential in the urban sector between the top 20% and the bottom 20% is at an all-time high of over 60%, or 6.3 difference. And similarly, in the rural sector, it is 9.3. So, income disparities have risen. Then there are a large number of people, veterans as well as party members, senior one particularly, who have disapproved of Xi Jinping starting a third term or making a bid for a third term. Many of them feel they don't want to return to the one-man rule of Mao Zedong.
Right.
So there are a number of factors which are there. And there are a sizable number of Chinese Communist Party members, the younger element, who are unhappy with the policy on Russia. They feel that China has gone too close. And second, unhappy with the manner in which the relations with the US has been handled, because they feel that's, should have been handled better, and China has been isolated. That's their view. And they're pretty worried that, things may come to a stage where the United States hits China with sanctions, which which will really hurt China.
So, this is absolutely true. In fact, that's what was going to be my next question, that the relationship between China and US has deteriorated to such an extent. And in fact, I think only yesterday, Blinken and Wang Yi met in Malta. So, in that, it is very clear that the Chinese are taking a very aggressive line. So, does it again come from this fact that they are getting isolated because they are with Russia, like you already mentioned? So now are the Chinese left only with friends like Russia, North Korea, and Pakistan?
Yeah, absolutely correct. Just three. And mind you, I just digress a bit.
Right.
In 2017, that is the 19th Party Congress,
Right.
I had gone to China just days after. And I met, obviously I can't name them, but some Communist Party cadres, very well informed.
Right.
Who told me, who said that, Xi Jinping has overreached himself. And we cannot, according to them, China cannot take on the US, and we are getting isolated.
Right.
Look at what friends we have, this person said. North Korea and Pakistan. So now you can have Russia.
Russia do it, yes.
But certainly that is what has happened. But in this meeting, it is interesting to see the way that the Chinese laid down what they said is the final red line, or the bottom red line, or the first
red line on Taiwan.
Yeah, on Taiwan, which means Taiwan is non-negotiable.
Right.
And all that we see happening around us, the unprecedented number of, military aircraft, ships, etc., that
And the blockade.
sending,
Yes.
exactly, and the exercise that is going on.
Right.
Taiwan is number one on the list. So for them to say that is basically telling the US that you back off, because we are not going to, and we are going to take them on. And that, I think, in fact, raises the threshold of conflict rather than easing it. It also appeals to their domestic audience in China that Xi Jinping is not going to bow down.
Yeah.
But in my view, I think that's a wrong step to take, unless there have been some, parts of that conversation which have not been released, which are more conciliatory.
Between the US and
But incidentally, talking to you about your first point, ministers despairing, Wang Yi has reappeared.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, till Saturday, people were saying even he's disappeared. So I think by Sunday, he's already reappeared. But the Taiwan question actually troubles the world in the sense, initially, I think about 3 months ago, we spoke about the possible deadline as 2027. Going by what is happening now, is it being advanced because of the uncertain domestic situation, maybe setback in the domestic economic policies, economic condition? Will Xi Jinping want to take that chance to try and forcibly reunify Taiwan with the mainland?
I think, it's risky to make a...
Yes, sure.
But I would think, or in my view at least, if what I said about in-party, factional fighting going on within the Chinese Communist Party, if that increases, if that is correct, and if that increases, if there is no improvement in the economic situation, then Xi Jinping will increasingly be pushed with his back to the wall. And it is at that stage that he might do something.
Right.
Mind you, he's got his loyalists in all the key positions.
Sure.
But still we are seeing articles appearing that are critical of him till today, including in official publications, which are tightly controlled.
Right.
So there is obviously dissatisfaction at various levels.
Sure.
So I think that he might do it. But he is also fears that the US will react. Then, of course, he might not go the full way.
Right.
Otherwise, I think the chances are that he will, because he also wants to go down Ladakh, not Wang Yi really, the Chinese. And Arunachal.
Right.
So we have two problems right there and then. I think it will encourage the Chinese more. It will, remove any restraints that they have. So we need to get at the third. Of course, the economic thing that I think around 60% of our trade flows through those waters.
Sure.
So, in my estimate, we have to take a call. I think the time would be right for us. We should get involved in whatever actions the Quad plans. We may not send our own assets in to fight, but certainly we have enough bases and enough agreements with the United States and others for allowing them use of all these, including the Andamans.
No wonder the Indian military has started looking ahead and planning ahead and wargaming the situation in Taiwan. And if China attacks Taiwan or tries to invade Taiwan, what would be options that are available and what options would be asked for by the Quad partners, especially the US. I think that study has already started.
Yes.
From what one knows. But one final thought from you. Now, everywhere there is election season in the democracies. In the US next year, in India next year. Would it tempt the Chinese to up the ante when decision makers, executive decision makers are slightly distracted with their own domestic compulsions or domestic needs for getting re-elected? Would that be the right time for the Chinese to strike?
I think it would be a real temptation for the Chinese because they would anticipate that the government would not be able to respond forcefully. I think they will be mistaken from what we are seeing, the current deployments.
Right.
And what I've been seeing is the deployments, including in the Depsang area and all, are quite high.
Right. From our side.
And from their
side. Yes.
The rate, they've already built 2 or 3 airfields around Karakoram and those areas. So they could try something.
Right.
I think it's a high risk thing. It doesn't mean that they will do it, but it's high enough risk.
So India has to be watchful on many fronts, not just on its land borders, but also what happens in Taiwan.
Yeah.
One has to keep a close watch, and how US reacts to it would be one of the things that India will have to watch out for very closely. But thank you again for your thoughts and your insights. Always useful to know how you look at it very differently than the normal narrative. So always a pleasure to host you in our discussions.
Thank you. Thank you well.
So that's Jayadeva Ranade telling us what we should expect and what's happening inside China according to his own analysis of long years of observing and studying China. Do keep watching StratNews Global. You know where to reach us. Our social media handles are visible on the screen. Keep sending feedback. Your comments are always welcome, and we take your feedback very seriously. So until the next time, it's goodbye.
For the latest in strategic affairs, subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click the bell icon for updates.